When it comes to Disney's most villainous characters, there's almost no arguing that Scar was one of the top dogs, or in this case, top cats. I mean, even his name has a dark undertone to it. That being said, even though Scar was named after his signature wound, Disney has never outright explained or visibly shown how the lion was scarred in the first place. There are various versions of the story that all seem to hold some truth to them, but which one is the most accurate? That's up to you to decide. As of right now, there are 3 different stories that have all gone into the origin of the lion's infamous scar. Although none of them have actually been addressed by Disney, they were all signed off on by the House of Mouse. This means that whether they're canon or not, all 3 of these versions of Scar's backstory have been approved by Disney, with one of them actually coming from a Lion King movie. But what's really interesting about all of these origin stories is that each of them has a dark undertone to them, which oddly enough made it easier to sympathize with Scar. That's not me saying that Scar wasn't a villain though, the cunning cat clearly had some personal issues to work out. Now, the first of the 3 tales is actually the newest version of Scar's story, which might be the most obvious answer to where Scar got his signature wound, and that's at the hands or paws of his own brother. Now, I want to get it right out of the way that Mufasa was not the bad guy in this scenario. To be fair though, neither was Scar. He was just a younger sibling who took a shot at the throne. This origin for Scar's wound was revealed to fans in the live-action reimagining of The Lion King, which was released in 2019. Throughout the movie, it was explained that during their youth, Scar was very vocal about the fact that he felt Mufasa was unfit to be king. Much like the original movie, Scar wasn't shy about his feelings toward the kingdom, to the point where he even exiled himself to the Outlands, essentially turning his back on his family. I mean, he didn't even show up to the ceremony that revealed Simba to the kingdom, his own nephew. But that's not exactly where his scar came from. You see, in the movie, where Scar and Mufasa were shown on screen together for the first time, Scar made the statement, "I wouldn't dream of challenging you again." This implies that not only did Scar challenge Mufasa to combat his right to rule, but as you'd expect based on their size, Mufasa beat Scar and in the end left him a lifelong reminder of his defeat. But what's really interesting is that the live-action version of the movie made it seem like Scar wasn't only battling Mufasa over the right to rule the Pride Lands, he was also trying to win over Sarabi's heart, or at least the right to claim her as his wife, as dark as that sounds. This is coming from the scene in the movie where Scar, after killing Mufasa and taking the throne for himself, was talking to Sarabi. During the brief conversation, he mentions that Sarabi chose Mufasa over him, and then utters the creepy phrase, "But now there is a new king," as if that meant that Sarabi would finally show him affection. All of this implies that Scar had wanted to be with Sarabi almost as much as he wanted to be the rightful ruler of the Pride Lands and the leader of the Pride. However, as mentioned before, when he challenged Mufasa for the throne, Mufasa clearly didn't hold back and ended up wounding the lion so bad that he was forced to refer to himself by what had to be a nickname, Scar. On top of that, Scar's defeat reasserted the feeling within himself that he wasn't an important member of the Pride, and that at the end of the day, he couldn't hold a candle to the greatness that was Mufasa. And, as you know, Scar held a grudge for the rest of Mufasa's life, which was cut short when Scar turned away from brute strength and started using his cunning mind against his much stronger brother. Still, even though Mufasa was gone, in this version of the story, Scar was left with a constant reminder of what his elder brother was capable of. As dark as that is though, would you believe that's not even the worst version of Scar's origin story? In the second version of Scar's tragic origin story, the truth about his wound wasn't explained until quite some time after the lion had already passed away. That's because it wasn't told until Disney came out with their original series, The Lion Guard. In The Lion Guard, Disney took a slightly different angle on Scar's villainous backstory. In this case, they made it clear that a lot of what made Scar such a bad guy actually came from his own ego. According to the Lion Guard, Scar's wound never came from a fight with Mufasa. Instead, it was the result of another dark and tricky lion who teamed up with a snake to try and brainwash Mufasa's younger brother. You see, in the show, it was revealed that the lion had promised Scar wisdom and knowledge that would help him take over the Pride Lands. But when it didn't seem to be working, Scar was attacked by a venomous snake that had been working with the lion. The lion then claimed that he could give Scar the antidote if Scar would help him complete his mission. Instead of going along with the other lion's plan though, Scar unleashed the roar of the elders and incidentally killed the other lion and his venomous partner. Scar immediately reported to Mufasa and expected to be praised for stopping a wicked plan that would have overthrown his brother. Instead of being told that he did a good job, Mufasa merely dismissed the actions as if they were nothing. Not only that, but this was when Mufasa officially nicknamed his younger brother Scar. Now, at this point, the venom from the snake bite was still coursing through Scar's body, and it began to cause him to lean into his more villainous side. Feeling disrespected by Mufasa, whom he had potentially just saved, the villainous lion began to give in to his basic desires, which, as you know, meant taking over the kingdom for himself. Not because he sought power though, at least not entirely. The Lion Guard made it seem like Scar wanted to usurp Mufasa because he believed his brother wasn't a fit leader. This created or enlarged a rift between Scar and his brother that would only continue to grow until the events of the first Lion King movie. In other words, according to the Lion Guard, while Scar had already had villainous thoughts in his mind, he might not have succumbed to those thoughts had it not been for the snake venom that was coursing through his body. But can you guess what's worse than that? Being treated like you're worthless, which is exactly how Scar felt according to the third and final origin story about how he got his nickname and the wound that inspired it. This is the story of how Taka became Scar. The story comes from a book set in the Lion King universe titled A Tale of Two Brothers. As you might guess, the story was centered around the lives of Mufasa and Scar as they grew up together in the Pride Lands. That being said, this was where fans of the franchise heard Scar's true name, which in this case was Taka. Now, you might think that Taka is a better name than Scar, but you would be surprised about how wrong you are, because in Swahili, Taka means trash or waste. That's right, according to A Tale of Two Brothers, Scar's original name was Trash, compared to Mufasa's name, which translates to king. This makes it plain to see who the preferred child was. The story depicts Scar as constantly feeling disrespected by the people who should have cared for him the most, his family. Particularly though, there was one lion that Taka thought was standing in his way, his older brother Mufasa. So according to the story, while they were out on a hunting excursion, Taka planned to embarrass his older brother, only he took it a little too far and wound up getting hurt himself. In the story, it was shown that Taka, along with the help of his hyena companions that he had tricked along the way, managed to rile up an angry water buffalo and get him to go charging after Mufasa. However, things didn't go as planned, and even though Mufasa managed to escape the buffalo's path unscathed, the same couldn't be said for his younger brother. Taka's plan backfired, and by the end of the hunting trip, he was left with a nasty wound over his eye that would stay with him for the rest of his life. From this point on, Taka was forever known as Scar, even by his own family. Although, like I said before, this might be a little better than being called trash by your own father. Still, Scar's resentment toward his family only worsened over time, and eventually he was pushed further away from the pride and closer to the hyenas that he would eventually manipulate to usurp the crown. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Who could blame him? In the story, Scar clearly already felt like his family had disrespected him and disgraced him, so for him to find a group of animals that was willing to work with him or for him was a no-brainer. And whether it was out of respect or fear, the hyenas listened to Scar's every command, which likely made him feel more validated than he ever did with his pride. No matter which of the three origin stories you consider to be the most canon, there is no doubt that how Scar became Scar is definitely one of the darkest tales in Disney, and at times can even be seen as horrific. I'm curious to know though, which of Scar's origin tales did you like the most and would consider the most realistic version? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.